were beating even by pastors at some points, you know. Yeah. And, you know, I definitely get it that it's not only the journalist that is beating, but you will find out that even those people who were beating was because there were some journalists around them. Yeah. And again, we tend to forget that all of this is not really about the journalist. It's about our freedom of speech. It's about our access to information as citizens. That's what results in this. And I think you are spot on. You know, but the interesting thing is that when you're listing it, you did not list the fact that politicians, when have we, you know, attacked the politicians? And if we say we are the fourth estate of the realm, who beats the first estate, the second and the third? Nobody does that. And so we need as a people to realize the fact that this thing is not sustainable when a journalist is doing his job and then you disagree with the person and you think that the way to go at it is attack them. And especially for me, when it is the police, when it's the you know, the military, when there are political parties that are involved, criminals like illegal miners, you know, and all of that, well, you know, they are criminals, you know, so you deal with that. But when the people who have to actually you know, preserve the rule of law in this country tend to the people who are perpetuating it. As we said, you know, the police headquarters that is supposed to be the citadel of law enforcement. You had Latif. Yeah. His call is cracked. And currently we have that situation that we're dealing with it. So I think that, again, so for me, I've seen this happen. And the reason why I get so passionate about this is, apart from the fact that this is at the foundation of our democracy, our freedoms and all, is that people like myself, you know, since 2000, when I joined, you know, multimedia, yeah, my salaries have been paid because the likes of you would go out into the field and go and do this job. And based on the back of that, we will gather audiences, get advertisers, and we'll pay our salaries. And so it's unconscionable. I will not be able to sleep when I see these things happen. And, you know, and for me, one of the places I come to, which is a safe haven when it comes to this particular fight, is multimedia. Because sometimes even our journalists themselves, or other media houses, have not shown the kind of, you know, teeth that we need to bear when these things happen. At least in multimedia, if we're not getting issues dealt with so far as, you know, the criminal cases are concerned, at least we'll go to the civil court and be able to get some reprieve. And I also need to dub my heart out now that the belligerence of the GJA and its president, it's one of the reasons why when it came to voting, you know, I campaigned for him, because I thought that this is a very important thing that we need to do. I'm not too sure whether the NMC, we've had the NMC in all of this. No. And you see, and George is my friend, you know, but it's not him, it's more the commissioners. I don't know who currently the NMC chairperson is. And for us not to have heard the voice of the NMC chairperson in situations like this tend to be worrying, because they are supposed to be the bastions of our freedom of speech, of, you know, the freedom of the journalist and all of that. And so it is important that all of us will rally. And again, you know, so we talk about the Minister for Interior and what he did. Yeah, yeah. Also the president himself. But it is worrying that we saw the faces of these military men. And up till now, we've not had the military high command tell us that there's been any interdiction of these people who are involved. At least prima facie, you know, you see that happening. I don't know what investigations, again, anybody would want to carry.
I mean, you raise a very important point. Anytime the military is involved in something like this, it's hard to even get transparency around, okay, so what has happened in terms of investigations?
Correct.
The president, who is the commander-in-chief, was very clear in this directive.
Right.
Investigate and let's sanction.
Correct.
But who is going to tell us whether they are investigating? Okay, so I can confirm something though. Last week, the military high command sent a team here, and they sat with Carlos and one of my other colleagues, and they interviewed Carlos, as in gathering the evidence. So that I can confirm.
Correct.
That investigations have happened. I only know because I work here. So if I wasn't working here, nobody else would know that the investigation indeed is happening.
Yes.
Right? Isn't that part of the problem?
No, I think it's,
the opacity around what is happening.
Again, I think it's a major
The police officer who assaulted the reporter in Ablekuma North immediately said on the issue that he's interdicted and we knew what was happening. But the soldiers...
Yes, and again, for the police officer too as well, that's a novelty. It's not something that has been happening, in the past. You had the situation where the police high command tells us that the CCTV footage when Lateef was assaulted cannot be found. It's mind-boggling. And how many police people have we not seen go through this route? But when it comes to the military, unfortunately, the situation has been very dark, very, opaque, and you don't get to hear it. And I don't know, I'm sure it's all about, rallying the men and all, but it's important for the military to see that when you have situations like this happen, and you have people who, go out and sin openly, the question you even be asking is that who would send military people to go into the space they had gone into?
Yeah, I mean, supervising a demolition exercise.
Correct. Where there's been...
Another fundamental question has still not been asked.
Definitely.
Answered, actually.
Who's done that? Again, so that's for me, it's definitely we need a military at some points where the police are the wits end, you bring the military in. So the situation in Boko is a typical example. The examples in some of the mining areas where, the challenges that confront you, the police are not able to deal with, you bring them in. Because again, so that's why for me, I'm not too worried about, the militarization to some extent. But if it comes to the demolition of, of a property, which we know, in that space that we're talking about, the police could have easily handled. Why is it that the military were there? But even if they're there and these things have happened, it is important for the police, the military high command, to realize the fact that where we are currently, it's not like in the past where you will not get footage. This thing happened on live TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We can see these people. We know these people. So when you don't deal with them, then what you then tend to do, and then when you handle them, you come to Joy FM, come and do an interview. We don't hear anything. The people who are involved in it, nobody knows it. It just emboldens the rest of them to continue to do this. So I would urge the military that in this particular situation, this man, look at him. You can see him on TV. Everybody can see him, And the interesting thing, again, in all of this is that there are some people who are not in military gear. You see them on TV. They're worried, but they're carrying, ammunition. It's the same thing that happened when you had the Forestry Commission, where you had people go there with even policemen in their presence, and they were wielding weapons. So for me, I think it's important that, we find a way of dealing with this issue. This man, for example, we should be told what has happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, let me bring in Dr. Ishmael Norman. Doc, you're watching that playback there, and this was a demolition exercise that the men in uniform, the soldiers, had gone to supervise. But give me your comment on that. I mean, is that standard practice for members of the Ghana Armed Forces to be supervising demolition exercises? Please unmute for me.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much, Evans. And sorry about that. I think that I strongly associate with Engineer Dr. Ashbe. Just about everything he said could have come out of my mouth. I raised an issue on Saturday on another TV program that there are 43,000 plus police officers in this country. There are just about 16,000 or so soldiers. And every event, we are calling on soldiers. Meanwhile, they are not trained in domestic policing skills. Evans, can you believe that I'm being questioned already for making that statement, or making other statements?
Oh, you are being questioned by?
I won't go into that. At the right time, it will come out.
Okay.
Transparency in the military is an oxymoron because it's structured on need to know only. And so if they think that you don't have a need to know, they will never tell you. And so for me, I have a problem in deploying military to do a job, domestic job, that the Ghana police is so well fitted, so well trained, because of the experience in community engagement, community policing, and so on and so that. Are these soldiers over there? Are they from the military police? They are not. They don't have any skills in dealing with these kinds of escalation. And there was no escalation. Carlos was basically interviewing an eyewitness. And because they didn't want Carlos to see the camera to capture what was going on, because they decided that Carlos doesn't have a right to report, that the people there don't have a right to know what the military was doing. And that is why the soldier typically started beating on the civilian for doing absolutely nothing. Look at that. It's sad. And when you say it, they think you are exposing something that the military is doing. What they are doing is on camera. Everybody is saying it. So why can't we talk about it? I'm not a coward. I'm not afraid of anybody. Nobody can suppress my freedom of speech. Nobody. I will not allow it. So what we are seeing is that in terms of the deployment in Boko, perfectly allowed by the Establishment Act of the Ghana Armed Forces, allowed by the Constitution of Ghana, Article 210 Clause 3, and Emergency Powers Act, Article 31, and of the Constitution, as well as the Emergency Powers Act, allows the Commander-in-Chief to deploy the military when he deems